Filling up.
All right.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, everybody. If you want to say hello to Jody before we mute everybody and get started here, you're welcome to do so.
Hello.
Hey, Jody.
Hi.
Yeah.
Jody.
Hey, Jody.
Hello.
Hello, Jody.
Greetings,
Hello.
Jody.
Hey, Jody.
Hey. Hi, Martin. I see you down there in the corner.
I have to keep my camera off because I have twin toddlers who are all over the place, but
Oh, I want to
I'm
see
excited
them.
to be here. You want to see them? Okay.
Your
Let me
twin toddlers? Is that Liz? That must be Liz.
yeah, that's me.
Hey, Liz.
Okay. Hi. This
Oh, hi, cutie.
is Shy. Okay. Here's Frank. Frank, say hi.
Aw. Hi, Frank.
We're cute.
Yeah. They're very cute. They're very cute.
Mhm. So cute. All right. So we still
All
have,
right. So,
but I'll just keep letting them in as they come.
okay, guess what we're going to do in this. First, my name is John Goodwin. I'm the president of Galaxy Press, and we're here to welcome Jody on as the new coordinating judge for Writers of the Future. Just a little bit before we get started, the way we're going to work this is I'll basically do an introduction, and then she'll say some words, and then if you have any questions of Jody, the way we've been successfully doing this in other events we've done is go into the chat and type your question, and then I'll field that to Jody so that she can then answer, and then we'll get through this thing. So within an hour, we should have everybody pretty well introduced to Jody. We also have tomorrow another one because we wanted to make sure that anybody from Europe and Asia wants a chance to meet her too can do that. So we have one more Zoom tomorrow. But in case you know somebody that misses this one here, you're welcome to invite them or tell them about tomorrow's meet and greet as well. So there we go. So let's get started. So what's going to happen is Emily's going to mute everybody, and then that way it makes it easier for us to move forward on it. And like I said, put your questions in the chat, and we will then take it from there. So New York Times and USA Today bestselling author Jody Lynn Nye is warmly welcomed to the coordinating judge for the L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future contest following the recent and untimely passing of David Farland. She's been a contest judge since 2016 and has a long history of helping aspiring writers. Since 1987, Jody has published over 50 novels and more than 170 short stories, specializing in science fiction or fantasy action novels and humor. She has taught numerous writing workshops and participated in hundreds of panels covering the subjects of writing and being published at science fiction conventions. She also runs the two-day writers workshop at DragonCon. And for us, most recently, the two stories that were in the judge stories in volumes 36 and 37 were both written by Jody. So that gives you a good opportunity to read what her story writing is like. So welcome, Jody.
Thank you. I'm very proud to be here. Thank you. The acceptance has been marvelous. I'm sad for the circumstances under which I have come into this office, because David Farland was an old friend. Knew him both when we were writing for various game companies, and he was always a great guy. And I was very happy to re-encounter him when I started working with the Writers of the Future. Good heavens, almost 6 years ago. It's incredible to think of that. But I am stepping forward. I'm going to do my best for the young writers, and hope that to see stories from everybody until the day that you pro out or until you win. So that'll be a lot of fun. There's so much that's good about this contest. The fact that it's constantly looking for new writers, and the fact that it's free to enter. I always am shocked by the contests where they ask for an entrance fee, $10. Maybe I can see for administration, and the fact that you are using resources for time, but some of them are $25, $50, $200 to enter. Ridiculous. And the structure of the contest is marvelous, giving these young writers this fantastic opportunity to have a week-long seminar with notable writers, welcoming them into the community and just giving them a chance to see what it's like out there and to be honored for excellence in fiction, their very first time.
So what was interesting is when it's interesting how many people are taking responsibility for introducing you to us and getting you on as a judge. It's like,
Well,
so everybody wants a piece of Jody and this thing here, because it's so well it's amazing the amount of overflowing of just appreciation of what you're doing in this thing here, and I'm taking on this role. So one thing I want to make sure everybody knows too is that, so Jody's coming on, she's going to be the coordinating judge, or she is the coordinating judge, and then Dean Wesley Smith will be the editor. So we're dividing the hats up so that so it's split both ways. The contest has grown so much now that just being, but being the coordinating judge is a massive hat to be taken on. And likewise, being an editor, we don't want to have anything crossing up because it tends to jam up at the end of that fourth quarter, getting the judging done as well as putting together what's needed for the volume itself. So we're splitting up like that, which will make a big difference, I think. Make it easy for Jody just to continue focused on finding and discovering all the new talent that Writers of the Future is known for. So there's I don't know that you got an answer to this yet because you've not really had a chance you haven't started judging yet, but because Create Dimensional asked, what do you look for in a story? I don't know if you've got an answer for that yet.
Oh, I'm looking for a story that catches me from the word go. I want to see a functional narrative hook. I want to see excellent characters. I want to see that you have built your world and spelled it out on paper. Too often young writers fail to describe the place that they have imagined. It's in your head, but it isn't on the page yet, and you have to do that. So if you go back and hand it to someone else, a story is all the better for having a second pair of eyes on it. And say, can you picture my world? Can you see my characters? And if not, you have to go back and bring us into it. And that's not just sight, that's sound, smell, taste, emotion. So you're creating a world, let us know about it. Let us feel it. Let us experience it with you. And let's have a good story. It has to have a beginning, middle, and end. And I am counting on you understanding what that means to a story. A vignette means that you don't have a purpose for the story. It has to have an aim. It has to have a reason for existing. So all of those things make an excellent story.
Good. All right. Well, that's a good answer straight out of the gate. Good. From Joel Jones. Hello. What do you think is greatest difference between yourself and the late, great Dave Farland as a judge?
Well, he was quite a bit taller than I am. And we actually knew each other way back along when we were both working with game companies. He was very nurturing. He was very energetic. He had many, many, many things going. I don't know. I won't know until I start to work on this. I understand that he was a speed reader and I can read very fast too. So I think we both have a similar approach that we want to nurture young writers.
Yeah.
I'll know the differences when people start to tell me, oh, well, David used to do it differently. So we'll see. We'll see.
Okay, good. And then there was one thing, we got Barbara Young here, and Bill posted saying that Barbara Young introduced Jody to Bill. So this is great. Thank you very much, Barbara.
Yeah, Barbara. I owe her a lot. She also taught me to knit and took and civilized me like the Whitter Douglas did to Huck Finn. So what question?
It was just a comment from your husband that he said that she introduced you. So I'm just acknowledging that and giving her a wave and a thank you.
Indeed.
Yes.
So
Okay, Okay, so Creative Mission also asks, we'll be getting a new module for the online Rise to the Future course. I'll let Emily, since you're the one to put that together, you can talk about what we're planning for the future for the online course.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, we will be adding to it. We'll probably be recording some more modules for that in April when we have our next event and we actually have more judges here. It is the plan to expand on that. So we're not going to announce a whole lot about that just yet, but yeah, you will be seeing Jody in there and a few others.
great.
Good.
Yeah.
And then Barbara Young just asked, well, what does the coordinating judge do besides
Well, there's
and
a,
look pretty?
here's what I have gleaned so far. The mass of stories that comes in every quarter first passes through the hands of Carrie English, and she will winnow it down for me. She's going to be doing first read, and then she will hand me a number of stories that have now been curated to the point where I have far fewer to deal with than she did. Thank you, Carrie. And from that lot, I am selecting 8 finalists, 10 semifinalists, a number of silver honorable mentions, and a quantity of honorable mentions. And I have the parameters for each one of those. The finalists, naturally, there are 8 of them per quarter, and they go out to a selection of judges, including myself, to rate, and the first 3 are the winners for that quarter. The remaining 5 are also, they remain finalists, but they're not considered for any of the prizes. But the stories are obviously good enough to be published because they have been considered to be publishable. So they and the semifinalists are encouraged to take those stories and send them out to digest, send them out to magazines, expand them into novels if they happen to have lots and lots of world building. But those 3 stories that are the winners for that quarter go on to be considered for the grand prize at the end of the year. The first prize winners, one of them is going to get the marvelous grand prize along with a very handsome trophy. And all 3 winners from every quarter, so that's 12 in all, come to the gala event where they spend a week being taught by previously Dave and Tim Powers, who is the other teacher for the quarter, I mean for the event, but now me. So we guide them through a lot of things. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of education. Each of the other writing judges will also speak to them during that gala. And then there's a black tie event with an honest to goodness red carpet. So there's lots to be done.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to add one thing to that is all correct, Jody. But the finalists that are not chosen have the option to keep their story with us.
Mhm.
In the event that we need another story for the volume at the end. They don't have to. They can go ahead and send their stories out if they wish, once they are not selected during their quarter. But if they want us to consider them possibly for inclusion, we will hold their story. They cannot send it out if they choose to do so. Just want to throw that out there.
They can they withdraw it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
the day may come.
Yeah, that's right.
So more questions?
Yeah, just one thing too. Can we have Carrie? I want everybody to know who Carrie is. Carrie, can you chirp up here and say hello and introduce yourself?
Okay.
Oh,
Ah,
Carrie.
there. Hi. Hey, everybody. I'm Carrie English. I am the contest first reader. It is great to see you all here.
Great. Because she was talking about the first year, I want to make sure everybody know which face fits to that name.
That would be me.
Absolutely.
This is absolutely the face that looks at your manuscripts. I apologize. I did not put on makeup for this.
That's
This
all
is
right.
the
I put
no
on-
filter. No filter.
I put on enough for both of us.
Yes. Oh, and here, I'll
Oh.
make introductions.
Yes.
This is
I think
Rugen.
that- Wow.
Okay, good. Thank you, Carrie. So here's a question up from John Coffrin. Can humor be used like a spice in a story, or should humor only be used in a humorous story?
Oh, no, 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 no. You need humor in stories, particularly if they are dire. You need to break the tension now and again. But humor is not the easiest thing in the world for most people. I happen to have a facility for it, so I can understand. I'll be doing a talk about it at Life, the Universe, and Everything in a couple of weeks. So feel free to put in humor if it fits. It is too easy to put in too much, put in the wrong kind of humor. The best kind of humor is self-deprecating, but it's always appropriate to the circumstances. If you start to try and paste something on, it will show. So go for it. It doesn't have to be only a humorous story.
Okay, good. What will qualify as, this is from Monjo. What will qualify as an honorable mention? Do you expect to have roughly the same number of honorable mentions and silver honorable mentions?
As what? As before?
Is what we have been doing.
I understand that the honorable mentions run into triple figures. So
Yeah, we try to keep around 10%. We try to do that as a rule of thumb.
So yes, there will be numerous honorable mentions. There will be a few silver honorable mentions, and we want to encourage young people, young writers. By that I mean writers at the beginning of their career to try something new, try something wonderful. So yeah, of course, we'd love to give you an honorable mention. We'd love to give you a higher award if you can qualify for it. But we want to recognize good writing.
Right. Now, this is from Devin Miller. Can you talk about what you feel winners and finalists and semifinalist stories accomplish that silver honorable mentions and honorable mentions stories do not?
Oh, well, from my understanding, the semifinalists are nearly at the level of the finalists. They have perhaps one flaw that prevents them from moving into that echelon. And it could be a small thing. It could be as simple as they drop the ball with their protagonist, or it has a weak ending, or they fail to describe well, even if the rest of the story moves like a rocket ship. As for silver honorable mentions, they too are very nearly semifinalist quality, but they may need a little bit more time. And everybody, you know, it's a sometimes a very subtle thing to say, this story moves into this category because of this little thing that the story immediately behind it lacks. So yes, it's very subjective. I will do my best to make sure that it is fair, but
yeah,
in the end, you know, it's me reading them, so I'm going to have to go with my own judgment.
Right.
Okay, good. And next question we have here is, what piece of fiction of yours should we read to best get to know you?
Oh boy.
I love Mythology 101. I'll just go ahead and put that straight out forward right now.
Oh, thank
Mythology
you.
101, it rocks. I love that story. But
Oh,
anyway, I'll let you now answer the question.
okay. I love Mythology 101. I would absolutely encourage people. It is contemporary humorous fiction.
Yeah.
But if you want something that is a little bit newer and that I had wild fun with, is called View from the Imperium. Came out from Baen Books. It's sort of Jeeves and Wooster in space, if you're familiar with P.G. Wodehouse, about the feckless young lordling and the sensible, self-effacing gentleman who keeps him mostly out of trouble. And I had huge fun with that. I've done 3 books in the series so far. There are 4 books in the Mythology 101 series. There are 3 books in the Lord Thomas Conago series so far.
Great.
I think you'll enjoy any of them.
Absolutely. So let's see, I'm gonna make sure. So Joel, I hope that answered your question on that. And anybody else that was also not familiar that wants to get to know her, there's your answer to the question. Here's another one now from John Eric Schleicher. Do you have a short story in mind from yourself and or another author you can point to as an exemplary example of what you'd love to publish in the anthology?
Okay, we're looking for a variety of stories. We're looking for a variety of styles. I would never put, say, 12 space opera stories into the anthology because that's not what other people are looking for. Also, your readers want to see your best thing, write the story that is haunting you. It won't let you go. The idea that keeps perking up, even when you're making coffee in the morning, or when you're sitting down from work, or having the cat in your lap. You want to get that story on paper. So read the anthologies that already exist. Take a look at the excellence of some of them. They are all different in every book, because that is a purposeful choice, is to find things that people will really be interested in. And if the style of the one on page one doesn't really do it for you, go on to the second story, because it will be different, but still really good.
And that's one thing we also routinely tell people, and has been a constant reiteration, is read Writers of the Future. That's who the judges, I mean, those of us that write at the contest, the administrators and staff, don't have a say in what the stories are in that book. These are stories chosen by the judges as the best of the best. So that's something too, is if you know, like, what do we look for? It's what's in there right now. Jody's been a judge now for 6 years. So she's definitely in the flow of what comes and what goes. And we definitely share the same mentality of what we're looking for in this contest is originally set up by Mr. Hubbard in 1983. So we're trying to keep that objective continuous. These stories are all appropriate for middle school on up. It's a little bit something for everybody. So like she said, it's not like it has to be this type of a story. It is speculative fiction, but it's like everything we've talked about so far is what we're looking for. So it's not like it has to be this kind of a story, that kind of a story. It's just got to be, like Orson Scott Card said, it's just got to be really, really good. So
and don't forget that you have to have that speculative fiction aspect to it. The story has to hinge on that. If you don't have a fantasy or science fiction element in it, if it could be told anywhere else and still be the same story you wrote, it's not science fiction. It's not fantasy. Keep that in mind.
Good. That's very good. So this is from David Curnow. Hi, Jody. It's tomorrow here in Australia. Happy face. But my question is around the total word count. Do you have a story sweet spot or a preference to aim at? And what do you think of the Oxford comma?
The Oxford comma, I think, has had too much attention paid to it, and it is starting to get very, very conceited. So I would ignore it. But it seems to be industry standard now, so use it. I am of the opinion that the and in Faith, Hope, and Charity is the same as the comma, but the use of the Oxford comma has become so common that go ahead and use it, because other people will point out that it's missing if it is missing. So don't necessarily have that. So what was the first half of the question again?
First half of the question is, do you have a preference on word count? I know we can go, do you have a sweet spot? Like the max is 17,000 words.
I know.
Yeah.
It had better be worth it. If you are dragging it out 17,000 words, it had better be worth it to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be 3,000 words. I would say probably a short story will run 5 to 7, maybe 8,000 words. That's about where I tend to come down. My husband, who is in the audience here somewhere, will always say, Jody will write no story before it is long. But if it belongs that long, then give it to me. If you are padding it because you have suddenly thought of poetry that needs to be in there, or description of something that doesn't actually move the story along, cut it out. Save it for something else.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is from Lou Sitzma. Jody, I believe Dave stated he would pass on stories with downbeat endings. Where do you stand on such stories?
Again, it had better be appropriate to the story. And I would consider a story or two perhaps as nominees, but like I said, it needs to be well worth the ending. Naturally, I prefer a happy ending, but don't take that. If it's a story that deserves a downbeat ending for some reason, go ahead. Keep in mind that we have sort of a PG rating for the anthology, which means that if it's gory or unnecessarily gloomy, it probably won't be considered, because you are writing for a market. You know,
Yeah.
it's not just the best story, it's the best story that could be published in these anthologies.
Good. That's a good answer. Thank you. And this is from Wolf Moon. Before Dave left us, he said the industry has a real shortage of humor writers at present. Jody, you are noted for your work with fantasy humorist Robert Aspirin, as well as your own myth books.
Mhm.
Why is fantasy so hard to write and get published? And what will you be looking for in wolf anthologies when it comes to humor?
It had better be funny. I don't want cheap humor. I don't want I don't want slapstick on the page unless it's appropriate. Show me wit. Don't show me attacks. Show me the beauty of how you have constructed the joke. Understand timing, because it's vital for humor. I think that you'll find that if you watch a lot of movies that have comic actors in them playing dramatic parts, they have better timing than dramatic actors tend to have. And that is something to keep in mind. Also, never punch down. The kid knocking the rich man's hat off with a snowball is funny. The rich man picking up a snowball and beating the kid is not.
Good. All right. This is from Sasha Reinhardt. Just curious, what is your most striking and fond memory of David Farland?
Oh boy. So many of them. Every conversation I had with him was lovely. I loved his twinkle. He was just an all-around good guy.
Yeah, that's my reality. Okay, this is from Monica Zwickstra. How will your perspective on the stories be different from other judges? What is your preferences? Fantasy, sci-fi, thriller, etc. Break down fantasy bit to Portal. I'm not sure
like
what
all
Portal
kinds-
is.
I love story, portal fiction. Yeah, make it a good story. I'll go along with it if it's good. I will. I've done enough workshops with people. I like I said, I run the 2-day writers workshop at Dragon Con, and even if it is not my kind of story, if it's excellent, then I'll ride with you to the end.
Good. So we all know you will want, this is the same person. We all know you will want the best of the best, spelling, punctuation, etc. But what can you overlook when considering new writers? Can you see the story despite the flaws, and what flaws can you not forgive?
Don't make me copy edit you. That's not my job. If you were going to send this to any New York publisher, then it behooves you to try and do the best possible grammar, punctuation, spelling that you can muster. I realize that Mark Twain said that it's a poor imagination that can only think of one way to spell a word, but really don't make me work for it, because I have lots of stories that I have to look at. And if you are making me dig through a lot of chaff to get to your story, then it's too soon. It needed another trip through the word processor. So I want the best you can possibly give me. If you're not a terribly grammatical writer, and it's not because you're writing in a dialect or a milieu that allows for such a thing. Standard grammar is standard for a reason. It allows the greatest number of readers to understand it. And if I can't get through it, then the readers aren't going to want to get through it either. So if that sounds harsh, I'm sorry. There are so many good writers who are submitting to this contest. And I don't want you to get left behind because you thought that I should be doing the work that you should be doing.
Good answer there. And then the last question that Monica asked there on that one is there a point of view you like better than others? Is there a subject you hate or love?
That's a tough one. Like I said, if it's a good story, if it's an original story, and if you catch me on page 1 and drag me all the way to the last page, I'll go with it. I have to say I'm not hugely fond of horror. So I will fight my way through it. I will vote for if it's excellent, but part of me is going to be screaming, no, don't make me go in there. No, babysitter, don't go to the basement and when weird noise comes up.
Okay, good. What are some of the most recent works that you've read that you've loved? This is from Jared again.
Hi, Jared. What have I been reading lately that's excellent? Right now, I'm reading a lot of the 1632 novels. Eric Flint is a terrific writer, yeah, and he is a fellow judge and is currently under the weather, so please send good thoughts to him.
Yeah.
Let's see. I pick up cozies to read just as an odd thing. I'm reading a lot of the classic writers. I love Terry Pratchett. I think that he was our Shakespeare for science fiction and fantasy. For the same reason, he understood human nature and loved us anyway. So he is somebody really to take a look at. I'm trying to think who I picked up lately. Been reading a bunch of short stories, taking a look at other things. There's so much that's good that is out there. So maybe I'll start putting things on my blog of, I have a new blog of saying, hey, I've read this is worth your while. Bill and I used to write the fiction recommendations for Galaxy's Edge magazine. And right now, a man named Richard Schwedick, who is a Nebula Award winner, is doing that. So I think that either our past recommendations or anything that Richard is recommending now, you'll find to be good.
Great, thank you. This is from Monica. And how do we get past Carrie to ensure the judges get to read it?
I answered that, thank you.
You have to knock Carrie's eyes out. You have to make her so thrilled that she cannot help but send it on to me. And then you have to delight me and baffle, just knock me dead with your wordplay and your understanding of your characters. So do the best you can. It may take you a few times through. Some people have submitted over and over again and never won. But if you improve every time, and most people will improve as they go along. David Gerald said that the first 1,000,000 words don't count. So that's a lot of short stories.
Yes.
But
yeah.
keep writing, keep trying, keep submitting, and sooner or later, you can get there.
Yes, good. Martin Shoemaker. Dave famously hated werewolf stories and infamously chose one from Julie Frost anyway. Is there some story trope you hate? Now, you may have already, you talked about just horror, but any particular specific trope besides the babysitter going to the basement?
I hate any story where the characters do something stupid just to move your plot along. I really, really hate that. I expect that your characters are going to act like real people. And if they hear a sound in the basement, they're going to grab the kids, bundle them into the car, call the police, and call the parents. Don't send me something where somebody is being stupid. I understand why David didn't like the werewolf trope, because it has gotten very, very overused. There's an incredible amount of fiction out there that you can download every single day on, especially the free sites, and they all use the same vocabulary. So it's very hard to do something original in a trope like that. And I hope that you will give me something original that knocks me out so much that I can't resist putting it up for a finalist.
Good, thank you. And just in case anybody didn't catch this from Carrie, so don't take time away from Jody, which I'm just doing right now, but anyway, I read your first 2 to 4 pages and your ending. Please use standard manuscript format and make sure your story gives me a character and a setting with a problem right up front. Get your speculative element in early and stick your landing. And we also did a great podcast with Carrie. You can go to Rise and Illustrate the Feature podcast, a great podcast community that went up in December on what Carrie looks for and do's and don'ts. I think it's do's, don'ts, and WTFs on submitting to the contest. This is from Joel Jones. What are you tired of in fiction?
Oh, the chosen one aspect needs a reboot. It's very, very typical in young adult fiction and middle school fiction. By the time you get to be an adult, let's have somebody who has been around the block. I would like to see a character that has some experience behind her or him or them, because most people, when they're just starting out, are very much the same. It's experience that makes you different. So let's go for it a little bit. Expand the reaches of your characters.
Okay, good, thank you. And there's another thing here from Carrie, read grammar and typos. As first reader, I will overlook 3 or so total in the page I read. If you're averaging 1 or 2 per page, your story will probably be rejected. This is grammar problems and typos. Okay, Barbara Young. Will you be too busy to continue the adventures of Minx, Marmalade, and Athena?
I really, really want to get back to that. I'm going to start republishing the adventures of my cats on my new webpage. I started this when we first got these 3 cats, and I'm surprised that none of them have shown up to get in the way of my screen. I started publishing it as they came all the way from Texas to be with us. And my husband drove all the way down and all the way back, 26 hours in the car. And immediately it looked like they were exploring it as if they were from another planet. So I thought, okay, they're from another planet. And Athena is the chief agent, and the other 2 got swept up in her wake. They got brought along by accident. So the first one is on my webpage right now. So it's under the heading Minx's Diary. So it comes complete with pictures of my cats. So how can that be a bad thing? Sooner or later, I'll get back to it.
Okay, good. Okay, from Devin Miller. And if anybody else has other questions, feel free to ask them.
Yeah.
Okay, so good. So if you had to pick one aspect of a story, language, setting, originality, etc., that elevates the submission to the finalist level, what would it be?
I really can't say right now, but it would almost certainly have to be plot, because you can have great characters, but if they're not doing anything, it's
right.
What fun is that? And that becomes a vignette. Give me a great plot. Give me a great reason for getting them out of their comfortable sitting room. Give me a great reason for them selling up and moving out of town. Whatever reason it is, knock me out with your story.
Good. Thank you. Let's see here. We got from David Hankins. Did Dave judge Q1 stories before his untimely passing?
No.
No, he did not.
Q1 ends at the end of March. He did
No,
finish.
Q1 ends at the end December 31st. It goes October, but no, he did not. So
right.
Those
so
are.
I'm waiting to get all of those.
Yes, yes. Okay, from Cray Dimensional. Are there any types of story you haven't seen enough of?
No, I couldn't say that. I've seen a lot of stories so far, but I have not been handed any of the Writers of the Future entries yet. So we'll see what I get sick of.
Okay, good. Okay, Bill writes, what makes a good story hook? What must it do?
It has to have a character in it. Doesn't have to be your main character, but it has to comprise an action, a setting. Always set us in time and place as best you can. And it has to create in the mind of the reader a question that can only be answered by going on to read the rest of it. Sound simple? You try it.
Okay, good. From Lou Sitzma, Jody, do you have a book on writing, whether technical, inspirational, that you like?
I recommend also Techniques of the Selling Writer by Dwight Swain. I think it's University of Oklahoma Press. on writing by Stephen King. I put together one that was on how to edit your manuscript that Wordfire Press brought out. It's called Once More with Feeling. And there are a lot of good writing manuals out there, but please don't follow step-by-step instructions until you are a much more experienced writer. It's like using the Dungeons and Dragons manuals to help you write monsters. It is a guideline, but some people take it as a rule.
Great. All right. And let's see. Oh, here's an important one. How many cats do you have now?
Very important question. We have 3. Athena, who is 5, Minx and Marmalade, who are sisters, are 3.5.
Okay, good. Now, as we get more questions coming in here, my question to you also, which other people might be able to appreciate, is what conventions do you attend? Because obviously if they're a winner, they're going to be able to come and meet you at Writers of the Future, but otherwise, where can they go? What kind of conventions should they anticipate attending in order to be able to meet you?
I have always, well, I've been going to Dragon Con pretty much from the beginning. That is right now home convention. We live near Atlanta now. And what with the pandemic and everything, it's all been thrown in the air. So I've been going to LibertyCon in Chattanooga. I've been trying to get back to WindyCon in Chicago. But what with the pandemic, we've been doing a lot of virtual stuff. You can find me often on Continual, which is an online convention. In fact, I just finished recording a panel with Jim Nettles and Todd McCaffrey about dragons, and that'll be up in a couple of weeks. So check that out on Facebook. There's a lot of cool panels on that. Otherwise, I will have a schedule on my website, so you can catch up with me at conventions that I post. I often travel with Bard's Tower, which is a traveling bookstore that goes to conventions, and I have several coming up this year. I'll be at Connecticon. I think I'll be at FanX in Kansas City, and I am supposed to be at Fan Expo in Salt Lake City in September. So beyond that, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yes, I just saw a note go by. Somebody was at TSR. Did you work for TSR when the Monster Manual came out? Because I'm the one who typed that for Gary. I typed the Monster Manual Player's Guide and DMG out of Gary's manuscripts. It was my first job in publishing.
Well, that's great. That's really good there. So, and then here's another important question. Coke, Pepsi, or something else? And for chocolate, milk or dark?
Dark, of course. 70% cacao at the minimum. And I really don't drink any sweetened sodas anymore. Pretty much fizzy water, plain water, decaf, unfortunately.
All right, that happens eventually. Yes.
Health reasons. So.
Yes.
But hot cocoa, I do drink hot cocoa.
All right, good. Let's see. Well, that just resulted in a whole string of Dungeons and Dragons posts there, but
I'll answer questions if you've got them, but
yes.
But we
if
want
anybody
to
has any other questions, please feel free to type them in there right now. Here we go. When you teach a writing workshop, what's your modus operandi?
Okay, for DragonCon, I receive all these stories by August 1st because the convention is Labor Day weekend, and I read each story and give them a personal critique, but I also copy them out to every one of the participants so that everyone reads them and they can all give their own commentary. I give them lectures about my thoughts on writing and specifically about things that I notice about all of the stories or something that predominates within a story, especially if something really popular has come out recently that tends to get copied into a number of stories. One year I got a plethora of stories that had anonymous first-person narrators. And just to prove my point, I sent several of them out as part of I wasn't sending all 20 out at the time. So I sent out a bunch of them with the limited number of stories I did. One of my students was very funny about it. She said, by the time I got to the third one, I thought I was being punked. Well, I was trying to prove a point, which is introduce us to your main character. We need to know more than what they're feeling and thinking at the time.
Good, good. And I skipped one earlier, which you may have just answered this as well, but what do you teach at DragonCon?
I go over specific manuscripts that people have brought in, but I also try to give them an idea of character development, plotting, how to bring in description, how to research. And I have guest speakers. They vary from agents, editors, publishers. Recently, I have been connected with a wonderful lady who is an intellectual property attorney, and she spoke to my group last year. And that was very popular, and I'm going to ask her back again, because people think automatically, oh, I've got to get this copyrighted, oh, I have to protect this. And she laid out for the students exactly what they needed to know and when they need to do what they have to do. So I bring in experts as well as my own thoughts and my own experiences.
Great, thank you. And then here's one from, okay, this is from, last one from Devin Miller. Can you talk about how you read your own writing and figure out what doesn't work for editing purposes?
Yep, Bill is waving for a good reason. Once I have gone over, I write pretty clean. So I understand grammar and punctuation and spelling. So that's not going to be much of a problem. Although I used to have a habit of leaving one verb out somewhere in the book. And my publisher at the time used to call me up laughing and saying, I got to a sentence that said, he upped the stairs. I presume there was going to be a verb in there somewhere. But yeah. It's always good to have someone else's eyes on your work. Once you've gone over it, once you think that you have really knocked it out of the park, hand it to somebody. In my case, my husband, Bill Fawcett, who is on the screen somewhere wearing a blue shirt, there he is waving, is an excellent, excellent editor. And he'll go over it for me and say, what happened to the villain between chapters 3 and 17? And just, oh yeah, okay, I understand that. He will look it over for clarity, and he'll see if I'm missing something, and he's got really wonderful judgment. So good. Always somebody should look at your work besides you.
Great, thank you. And then any tips, this is from Lou, any tips on writing good dialogue?
Make it not sound like you. If you are not good at writing other people, listen to the way people talk. If necessary, listen to the way people speak whose first language is not English or from another part of the country, because they'll have a dialect that is different from yours. Learn from everybody that you listen to. In the same way that, I'm trying to remember if it's Mark Drucker who drew Beetle Bailey. He said you should be able to identify the character by the outline without having the face filled in. So the same should be true of your dialogue. You should be able to tell the difference between the characters by the way they speak. If it's a verbal tick of some kind, that they always start a sentence with well, or say like, maybe they're non-grammatical and drop their final G's. There should be something to distinguish them in some way. Perhaps they're persnickety and use 25-cent words all the time, where a 5-cent word will do. No, study them. Go over them to make sure that they all have some characteristic that is indicative of their character.
Good, thank you. And this is from Elaine Midco. You mentioned there must be a speculative element. What do you think of near future stories where the speculative element is almost already here? Example, self-driving cars, and the story focuses on the sociological impact, i.e. story that isn't too sciencey, more sociological.
Star Trek was full of sociological science fiction. That's cool. It has to be a story that cannot be taken out of its milieu. If you are telling it about a futuristic locale with the near future, yes, the near future is nearly here. Maybe the flying car is the fantasy or science fiction element of it, but the story needs to hinge on that. It can't just be window dressing, because then you can pick it up and take the story somewhere else.
Good, thank you. And from Elizabeth Tickner, you talked about guidelines versus rules. What kinds of things would you encourage writers to experiment with guideline-wise, and how do you recommend people assess whether a specific technique is good for a specific story?
Try it. See if it works for you. Not everybody can write everything. Not everybody should try to write everything, but go for it. Experiment with a storyline. If you find you can't go any further, then it's not working for you. And sometimes all you need to do is put it aside until your subconscious tells you what you need to know about where you went wrong. For me, it happens when I'm writing a book. I call it three-quarter book syndrome because that's when it happens. I think this is rotten. I can't go on. It's the worst thing that has ever been put down on paper or in pixels. And usually going away from it will tell me where I have gone off the rails. For guidelines, I would say, let your mind relax. For if you're stuck, then maybe what you need to do is put it aside. Anne McCaffrey always said she usually cleaned the oven when she got stuck on a story or when it wasn't working for her. So do something mindless, go for a drive, garden, play with the dog, make something physical, and then come back to your story and see it with fresh eyes. The more you can forget about how you felt when you were writing it, the more likely you are to assess it objectively. So for standards, Carrie told you she's going to reject things that don't live up to a standard of English. And if you are making her work too hard to read a story, it has to go back to you. Try again later.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, Candace Lyle asked, first or third person?
Either one can work. I've even read an excellent story that was in second person, but frankly, I consider that to be a gimmick. It's really hard to do. I've only read 2 stories in all the years I have been reading science fiction, fantasy, anything, where the second person worked. And one of them was a winner of the first year I was a judge. And the other was a mystery story in Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine called You Done It. And it had 6 bullet holes in the last page. But like I said, it's a gimmick.
Okay, good.
So first or third person, make it work for me.
Okay. Another one from David Hankins. Dave had stated preference for third person, which you've already answered that question. He said, though I've noticed that most recent winners were first person. Okay, so you've already gone
Same
over
question.
whatever works, just makes it work.
Mm-hmm. And the same goes for present or past tense. I personally don't care much for present tense stories. And one of the big problems with anybody writing present tense stories is that they fail because they bounce back and forth between past and present tense. If you can't hold it in one tense, then it probably is coming back to you.
Good. How soon does the spec element need to be introduced? Is page 4 too late?
Depends. The speculative element is like anything else in the narrative hook. You want to introduce people to it so that they know what they're looking for. Many people will go for it in the first few pages. Remember, in a short story, you don't have a lot of real estate, so you're going to need to put that in as soon as you can. In a book, you might be able to do it in up to 10 pages, but you don't have that luxury with a short story. Megan Lindholm, who wrote Assassin's Apprentice, she got her speculative element really on the last line of the first chapter, but you have to be very, very good to get away with that. Most of the time, give it to us as soon as we can so we know what we're dealing with. If I can't tell that it's a fantasy story, I'm probably going to give it back to you. If I can't tell what kind of science fiction it is, it'll be hard for me. Because the more questions you let build up in the mind of the reader, the less successful your story really is.
Good, thank you. So this is from David Curnow. I see on your webpage that you visited an article, which is pretty amazing, and I wondered what surprised you most about it.
Well, Bill will tell you that penguin poop smells, because you always look out at these vast tundras and huge icebergs, and then you get among the penguins and reality impinges. What did I find the most surprising? The vastness of it all. It's not until you really get there that you understand how huge it all is, how sweeping, how tall the mountains are, how big icebergs really are, and how cute penguins are. No question about that. How many of them there are. But remember, it's all very endangered, and it makes me think human beings really, we don't deserve this planet.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so from Joe Benet, I guess, is satire considered too political for Woof?
Is what?
Satire, too political?
Satire. How good are you at it? One of the problems with satire or parody or anything with a reference to a real life situation or something previous is making certain that your audience has a knowledge of the original. And how much do you have to say, get it, see, I'm doing this. So if I don't know what it is you're writing about, then it's not a successful satire.
Good.
It must stand alone.
Makes sense. Thank you. Okay, this is from PA. So near the ending of Mythology 101, there's a scene with an IRS agent that screams for a screen adaptation. Have you received offers for movie rights for this book or any other?
I have been approached. Nothing has happened, but then, the fact is thousands and thousands and thousands of people are approached for their TV rights, and far fewer of them get any kind of money or a contract. Far fewer of them, that second group, gets an option against rights for a movie or a television show, and a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction actually goes into pre-production, and far tinier fraction of that actually gets produced. So I'll let you know. I really want to do it.
Okay, great. And then here's one more from PA, and we're about ready to, we're getting close to the end here. You've collaborated with several authors on several books, McCaffrey, whom you just mentioned, Aspirin. How did it work in practice, and what made the additional work that a collaboration means worth it?
Well, with Anne, everything she said goes. She was the boss. She is a famous writer, a wonderful person, very, very generous, and even more than she needed to be. With Anne, if she liked something I wrote better than something she wrote, then she would use it. No ego involved, because what else did she have left to prove, honestly? With all of the other collaborators I've had, we've been on a peer basis. I never argued with Anne if she didn't want to do something or if she wanted me to do something. With the others, it was 50-50. And every collaboration, even with the same person, is different. Every single time that you start to do something new, there will be a different emphasis. Somebody will want to do one part or the other. With Bob, in the first book we did together, which was called License Invoked, he wanted to write all the villains. And I said, go for it. That was fine. He also wanted to write the sections that had the rock and roll in them, because he knew a lot of band members and crew members. So we were able to split it up by subject. Whereas I know people who sit down side by side, they write every other line. One person writes the hero, one person writes the sidekick, one person writes the villain, one person writes the henchman. So every single collab is different. And I have been privileged to work with some really fabulous people who taught me a lot at the same time that we were working together.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, we've come close now. We're at 6 o'clock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up everything here so everybody can at once go, congratulations, yay, as we wrap up our thing tonight. So everybody can, we're going to begin tomorrow. You can go to the Facebook page, risetofuture.com, or Rise to Future Facebook page, and you can then sign up for tomorrow's one too. If you have other questions you didn't get answered, you can sign up for that one there and ask those questions then. So anybody wants to wave and say goodbye, that's totally fine here. I'm opening up to everybody.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the welcome. I'm looking forward to doing this. It's going to be a huge job, but I have great people working with me. So
We very much look forward to having you on board. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Jody. And thank you all for attending.
Bye, Jody.
Thank you, Jody.
thank you.
Bye,
Thank
Jody.
you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Jody.
Jody.
Thank you. Happy to meet you.
Thank you.
Bye, Jody. Thank you.
You'll
Thank
do
you.
great.
Thank you very much. This was wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Hey,
Thank
Liz.
you.
Yes,
Bye.
thank you so much. It was very helpful.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Mhm. Okay.